As I mentioned, I'm Dr. Daphne Houston. Some of you were introduced to me maybe from Kevin Kermes, some of you from Careerlism. Some of you may have read articles or seen different publications that I've been in the past. I've been in the career and employment industry for the last 15 years in different capacities. And besides the certifications that I have as a federal job search trainer and a certified federal resume specialist and certified federal career counselor and all these different things, the accomplishments that I'm most proud of are, one, the results that my clients have gotten over the years, and two, that I bring a real-world perspective to the job search. I've worked in the public sector for the Department of Defense as an employee as well as a contractor, and I've worked in the private sector. I've worked for companies like PeopleSoft, Citibank, Reuters, and Accenture. I've also sat in different seats as the HR manager, as the hiring manager, actually interviewing people for the jobs. I've been in the position of a job seeker. I've been out there looking for a job. I've been in a position where I've been laid off from a job before. So I know what that feels like as well. So I understand throughout the process that you go through, different phases in your career, and I can say that, I've gone through some of the same phases and challenges that you have too. Probably one big difference, though, is that over the course of my career, I've written at least 10,000 resumes, or I should say written or edited at least 10,000. And I use that number as a really low estimate because I'm sure that it's probably more. And I've conducted thousands of interviews and been responsible for the successful recruiting and hiring of so many thousands of people. So I've really gotten a chance to see a lot of this from the inside out and from a different point of view myself as a job seeker. So that's really what I'm bringing to you today. I've invested a lot in my career over the years so that you can be successful in yours. This is what I really enjoy doing, and so it's a pleasure to share the things that we're going to cover today. So we'll be looking at vacancy announcements, what actually matters when you read them, which jobs to actually target. We're going to talk about something I started doing with clients that helped them triple their success rate and how the hiring process really works. The hiring process is a challenging process. It is different. It is very different from the private sector, but it is not a hiring process that can't be overcome, and it's so worth it. One thing I really want to emphasize is once you really conquer the process and have an action plan, you will be just quantum leaps ahead of other job seekers. And it is a very competitive market, and if you are highly qualified, don't be discouraged. Just know that there are a lot of other highly qualified people out there as well, so you really do need that edge, whether it's in the federal job search or in a private sector job search. So number one, critical key is you do have to understand the hiring process. There's a lot of information out there. I mean, it's public information. It's information about the federal government. But you really have to understand the hiring process that the federal government goes through. You have to read the vacancy announcements for maximum results, and you have to follow the directions. You would not believe the number of people that just are automatically disqualified because they did not follow the application directions in the vacancy announcement. So if you're one of the people that actually follows the directions and actually gets your application in, trust me, you're already ahead of the game right there. I want to show you a representation of the hiring process. So just bear with me a moment, and I am going to pull that up for you. Okay. And this is a representation from a class that we do of the hiring process. Hopefully you can see that. We start out up here at the top with a vacant position. There's a decision that's going to be made whether to fill that position or not fill the position. The position description is then analyzed. Supervisors make decisions on how to classify those positions, how they want to conduct the actual search to fill those positions, and that's where it gets a little cloudy. That's where you get into whether the job is going to be competitive, whether it's going to be non-competitive in the accepted services, whether there are going to be special hiring authorities or special programs involved, whether it's internal or it's external and competitive and open to others. Then you get down here, which is where you get back in the process, which is getting rated and assessed as a qualified applicant, because that's ultimately your job. So the rest of this process is kind of going on outside of you, but if there's a position you want to get here to this box where you're rated as one of the best candidates, and you get to meet with the supervisor in an interview situation and actually get offered the job down here. This little maze here is definitely the simple version of the hiring process, but I wanted to share it with you, and we're going to cover some of the pieces of this puzzle in here and talk about some ways to shortcut some of the pieces of this. So when I talk about those rankings, those qualifications, when you're looking at a vacancy announcement, there are basically 3 levels of qualifications. One are your basic qualifications. Those are going to be mandatory things that have been determined already by OPM. OPM is the Office of Personnel Management. All the HR roles come out of OPM, and positions are divided into classifications and groups to know what kinds of positions based on major, what kinds of positions based on work, based on skills, that kind of thing. Those are typically more general. For all administrative positions, there will be certain basic qualifications. Then the next level are your unique and essential qualifications. These are also called selective placement factors. This is often where the rubber meets the road, because these you have to meet to be considered by the hiring manager. And sometimes these are so unique to the federal government or to a specific agency or department within the federal government that when people read these types of vacancy announcements with these qualification requirements, they say, oh, this job is fixed. It's wired for somebody. That may or may not be true. You know, there is a big myth that, you know, all the federal government jobs are wired. You have to know somebody. Don't get me wrong, networking helps, but the selective placement factors are there for a reason, because if they are highly specialized skills that are needed for the job, they're definitely going to be there in that vacancy announcement. So that will just mean that that job is not right for you unless you have those skills or you can somehow acquire those skills in a timely manner. The next level is the desirable qualifications, and these are where you get your brownie points. These are your quality ranking factors, like the KSAs. This is where you really shine and you tell about your knowledge, your skills, your abilities to do the job. One of the things that is different about the federal process, when you're reading the announcement and you see this laundry list of requirements and duties and qualifications, is that it's not just an application. The federal application is really part interview and part application. So think of your resume as your application for the job, and think of your KSAs or your narratives or your essays or